Welcome to this video tour of the Project Tracking Workbook, originally created to support the Center for Community Engagement of San Juan College in Farmington, New Mexico. The Project Tracking Workbook is a powerful management tool programmed in Microsoft Excel 2010. The workbook is intended to help a user know whether or not his or her projects are meeting schedules within established timeframes. The workbook is not compatible with previous versions of Microsoft Excel. Visual indicators in the form of green, yellow, and red dots show whether a project is on time, in a final stage before deadline, or late. In today's world of multiple competing deadlines and teams, knowing just where one stands can be very helpful. The workbook has 3 worksheets, of which 2 are initially visible and 1 is hidden. In this video, we'll learn how to review the status of an existing project, enter a new project, and view and manipulate the summary report that we see here to gain very specific insights into the projects that we're tracking. Before diving in though, let's first take a look at this sample project timeline graphic, which is the foundation of the scheduling logic built into the Project Tracking Workbook. Here, we have a project timeline that shows the 4 stages of a project's completion. The stages, also commonly referred to as milestones, are effectively quartiles of completion: 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100%. In this particular project timeline, the project begins on March 4th, 2013 and is scheduled to be completed on July 31st, 2013. Note that the quartiles are not equally spaced in duration. This is in keeping with how real-life projects often operate. It sometimes takes longer to do one stage of a project than another. The yellow zone represents 5 net working days prior to when the particular milestone quartile is scheduled to be completed. Net working days are the number of work days between a starting and ending point that excludes weekends and holidays. For example, 5 net working days prior to the completion of the first quartile of the project on March 26th would begin on March 19th. Projects populated in the master table of the Project Tracking Workbook use this particular construct of quartiles and yellow zones. By applying a formula, Microsoft Excel knows how to calculate a date given the number of net working days desired. In the example shown on this chart, as well as in the workbook, all yellow zones are of equal duration by quartile. However, as we shall see when we populate a sample project, yellow zone duration can vary on a project-to-project basis. Let's now return to the workbook and the master table worksheet and begin our tour. Depending upon how a user's computer is configured and whether or not the Project Tracking Workbook has been opened before or not, it may be that this is the screen that first appears upon opening the workbook. If so, don't worry, all is in order. Ignore the warning message by clicking the OK button and enable the content shown on the warning bar here. With these 2 actions taken, if necessary, you are now ready to begin entering and tracking projects. The workbook initially opens to the master table worksheet. Before diving into the details of reviewing an existing project or entering a new project, let's take a look at what's being displayed here in the upper left-hand corner. First is the program version date. This is the date that the workbook's programming was last modified. Next is the workbook last saved date. This is a formula that automatically updates with a date and timestamp upon saving the workbook. It's helpful to the user so that upon reopening the workbook, one can easily tell when the last time the workbook was saved. The today's date field is also a formula and is used for date calculation purposes throughout the workbook. As stated in the red typeface, the entire workbook is protected, but no password is required. All the cells and features that require manual input are unlocked and available for user access. The user will enter information only on this worksheet and only in column B and columns D through O. To learn more about the individual columns within the worksheets table, click the button here to view comments. Each of the columns that have comments in them will, upon activation, be revealed. Click again to turn off the comments. We'll touch on the worksheet's other three buttons after reviewing an existing record within the table. Using the scroll bar, we can see that there are many columns within the master table. Many of these columns contain formulas and are locked or protected against manual entry. Again, a user will only enter information in column B and columns D through O. If, for example, I try to enter information in cell P16, which is a formula-driven cell, I am denied permission as a result of the worksheet's protection. Expanding the formula window, I am, however, able to view the programming that this cell contains. Returning to the left, we note that column J is highlighted in yellow. This particular column is highlighted because it is where a project's progress updates are recorded. The worksheet is programmed with a pick list that requires the user to select from either 0%, 25%, 50%, 75%, or 100% complete status. Upon making the selection, column K will update automatically with today's date. This little bit of macro coding simplifies the user's experience with the worksheet. Let's now review the first project plan and record contained within the worksheet. We note that it is record number 1 and that the status is yellow. The project name is Advisory Councils, and the project's specific action item is to set/conduct Advisory Council training. The project owner has assigned a medium priority as denoted by number 2, and the project is assigned to Nancy Shepard and Bill Lewis. This project, along with all the others initially populated in the worksheet, is assigned a 5 net working day margin. This means that if the project's next uncompleted quartile milestone is not complete, and today's date is within 5 net working days of that deadline, the project status will turn yellow. Columns J and K are where project updating takes place. Columns L through O are where the project owner manually enters the assigned dates for each quartile's expected completion. Let's now proceed to enter a new project. A new project needs to be entered on the first empty row within the table. To locate this row, place the cursor in cell D16 and press the Control down arrow key. This will take you to the last row that has a project filled out. Moving down one row further, we're now ready to begin entering our new project. In column D, we need to select a project name from the pre-populated drop-down list. The items comprising the drop-down list are contained on the hidden worksheet entitled Lists. If the new project name does not fit with one of the pre-existing project names, the new name will need to be added to the drop-down list from the corresponding list on the Lists worksheet. To do this, unhide the Lists worksheet by right-clicking on the tab and selecting the worksheet. Then enter the new name at the bottom of the project name list, resort the list, and rehide the Lists worksheet. Returning to the master table, you'll now note that the new project name is added to the drop-down choices. Then, moving from left to right, let's fill out the details related to the balance of the project. We'll enter the action item, assign a priority, and assign a responsible party. In this case, we'll assign a 3 net working day margin. Our project will start on March 15th, 2013 and is currently 0% complete. You'll note that as we enter the completion percentage date, the last update field to the right is automatically populated. We then enter the scheduled completion dates for the remaining quartiles of the project. Note that as I accidentally enter the 25% complete date with a date that is sooner in time than the start date, I'm confronted by an error message. Data validation logic within the table requires that the completion date of the next higher quartile milestone be equal to or greater than the completion date of the quartile before. How do we add a new project to the table if all the rows are filled up? Good question. First, we need to see the ribbon, which we do by clicking this little caret symbol. Next, we migrate over to the Review tab and click the Unprotect Sheet. Then we'll move to the bottom of the table and insert a new row. We do this by placing our cursor anywhere in the table and simultaneously pressing the Control and End keys. Then, pressing the Tab key, I'll append a new row to the table. All the formulas are replicated to the new row. I simply need to enter a new record number for the new project and enter the other project particulars as I've done above. Returning to the top of the worksheet, I'm now able to demonstrate the functionality contained within the table's filters and the other three buttons. As I enter new projects at the bottom of the table, I might like to be able to quickly look at all of the action items associated with a particular project name. To do this, I'll select the project name filter and the particular project name or names that I'm interested in reviewing. I'm selecting the Computer and Marketing Plan project names, and the table contracts to show just those projects. When done reviewing or updating, I simply click the purple button to clear all the filters on the master table. As tempting as it may be to rely on the filters contained within the master table, I would strongly encourage you not to rely on the master table as your primary status reporting tool. That should be the Summary Table worksheet. Turning to the Summary Table worksheet, we're able, with the assistance of a pivot table, to view the status of all of the various sub-projects under a given project name category. There is lots of functionality built into this worksheet to aid the user in gaining insight into the status of any particular project or set of projects. The pivot table contains three filters: the status filter, the percent complete filter, and the project name filter. Selecting the status filter, the user is able to identify just those projects that are in the red, or the yellow, or the green. In this case, I'm interested in seeing only those projects that are currently in the red. Once selected in the filter and upon review, clicking the blue Clear All Filters button returns the pivot table to its original state. Similar filtering functionality is found in the percent complete filter and in the project name filter. For example, if I wish to see the computer and marketing projects within the pivot table, I simply select those two items from the list. Upon making my review, again I click the Clear All Filters button. Shrinking the zoom level on the workbook to 80%, I'm able to see the other filtering tools on the worksheet. These are known as slicers and are key pivot table tools introduced to Microsoft Excel in the Excel 2010 version. Selecting a slicer allows me to, with one click, adjust the pivot table as desired. Clicking the computer project name in the project name slicer reveals the three subtasks associated with that project. The other slicers adjust accordingly, and at a glance we can see the associated status, priority, last update, and percent complete. Clicking the Clear All Filters button restores the pivot table again to its original state. Printing the summary table is easy. Click the Print Pivot Table button and configure the printer as desired. It may be helpful to click the Print Preview button prior to actually sending the document to your selected printer. The workbook is configured to send the print job to the computer's assigned default printer. However, this can be changed through the print dialog box as a user may desire. This completes the working tour of the Project Tracking Workbook. There's a lot more behind the scenes contained within the Visual Basic application window of the workbook. However, this is beyond the scope of this short How Do I Operate the Workbook video tour. If you're interested in learning more about the macros and programming, simultaneously press the Alt and F11 keys to view the coding. The beauty of the coding is that it does a lot of a user's keystroke work accurately and quickly, allowing the user to focus on just those things that matter most: entering, tracking, and reporting on project performance.